Welcome to the Living Life Juicy channel. I'm John Losi, your guide, and this is the Ask John 3 questions, where I allow the people that I've interviewed to ask me 3 questions, to turn the tables so that they can ask me a few questions. So Allan Hilton, the leader of A House United, A House United, author of that book. Allan, it's all yours. Ask me 3 questions.
So the phrasing of your intro had Ask John 3 questions, which if you punctuate differently is Ask John 3 questions. Questions are about John 3. And here's why I point that out. What has been the most important scripture in your life? So there's one that's sort of Bible-ish one that's a broader world one, and then one that's just for fun.
So only a New Testament scholar could punctuate it that way.
I know.
And thank you. I have to say, and this goes beyond just my, I believe that we can impact the world in lots of different ways. It comes to its fullness in relationship with Jesus, but it doesn't mean that I can't impact the world or people who don't believe in Jesus. And I think it's true, and this gets to my favorite kind of verse, which is John 10:10, where he's talking about leadership, and he's talking about the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I come that you might have life and have it to the full. I don't think Jesus was talking about, he wasn't being redundant. He wasn't saying, I come that you might have life and have life. He's coming that through grace, we have life. It's there. It's already there. Then he talks about the quality of life that we can live here and now, which is abundant, which is where I get the title of this podcast and this YouTube channel, which is Living Life Juicy. I read that as, I've come that you might have life and live it juicy. Mm-hmm. And juicy doesn't mean safe. It doesn't mean clean. It's messy, it's wild, and it's amazingly satisfying.
Yep. I love it. I thought you might go to John 10:10 because I believe in charter verses. I believe that lives are guided by primary verses, even if people don't know that they're guided by them. The second one is, if you could have access and impact one group or population in the world, right? Where would you most put your pick in the ground, or want to kind of be on the ground with people?
Wow, great question. I go to 2 places. One, when asked what is the biggest threat to our nation today, I think there's a lot of symptoms that are involved in the divide, but really our greatest threat is that we can't talk to each other. Mm-hmm. And the work that you're doing is really compelling to me, because it's about getting people to just talk to each other in a civil way that's about solving rather than winning. So part of me really wants to, like, the government aspect of it, of getting our politicians to talk. But I'm also a believer that that's a symptom too. Yeah. So if I could get in any community the adults to civilly talk to each other and not seek to win, but seek to solve. Right. And local communities, I think it starts with the individuals learning the skills and then practicing those skills with each other.
Yeah. And in fact, I'm working right now with a partner, and we've got a grant proposal that's looking good to go into high schools and do the same thing, right? So what you're picturing among adult communities is where I find a lot of value. But this partner has challenged me to say, okay, if high schoolers don't know it, they go to college not knowing it, and they don't learn it there, so they don't go into adulthood not knowing it, right? So I think there are tributary streams to what's going on in adulthood, but I love that you want to get into a place and just get people talking to one another.
And right now, the best medium for that is working with organizations and businesses.
Yeah. And I mean, part of what I think was behind when you said politics is a symptom, it seems like politicians right now, and I think most times, go do anything for money or votes, right? Which means they're a function of what people will pay for and vote for. And so if we put our pick in the ground in communities, grassroots communities, we've got a better chance of changing Washington than if we go straight there and say, oh, by the way, you guys need to get along, right?
Right. Yeah.
If getting along doesn't earn them money and votes, they won't do it.
Yeah.
The third question is, in your, and this is sort of a life question, you work a lot and in different sort of vectors and different, it's really fascinating how you've sort of crafted different niches for your outreach and work. What do you do that most gets you away from work? In other words, is there anything you do that is sabbatical in a weekly or at least a fairly regular way? What takes you away from the intensity of work?
That's a great question because it's something I'm wrestling with right now. Besides having a 5.5-year-old boy,
Yeah.
which takes you away from most everything in the most joyous and frustrating way.
Yeah.
So this summer, my sabbaticals was because I work from a home office. I was able to spend a lot of time in the water in the pool with my boy. I could just walk out and he'd come to my office in his swim trunks. And that to me was one of the joyful things, to watch him get comfortable in the water. Yeah. So there's a lot about that. But I also think beyond going to family, and this is where I wrestle. I used to be a scuba instructor and I spent a lot. That was my, it was kind of a job, but it was really so I could get discounts on gear.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, I know that you're big in golf and some other things. I'm having a hard time replacing that.
Yeah.
And part of it is I feel like I'm not living up to that juicy part because there's so many things I want to do. In fact, my wife confronted me last night and I talked about how I wanted to be I wanted to go to an improv class.
Yeah.
And she says, why aren't you?
Yeah.
And yeah, I need to do that. So I think next time we talk, challenge me to see if I've joined an improv class.
I'll check back in because I have found golf is the only thing in which I get fully absorbed away from work. I can do other things, but my mind's always moving. Somehow, even in that sport where you have a lot of time just walking, I never think about work when I'm golfing because I'm a competitive guy. And so having something like that just makes sure that your mind is not doing work feels to me like a Sabbath principle. And I'm glad I'm glad you're efforting it, but I will keep you accountable for actually doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now that it's out there. And I think, it's not just you now. I've got at least dozens of listeners that'll probably hold me accountable too.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. It's a great way to commit yourself.
Thanks again, Allan. I think, and I believe the quality of a person's questions tells you a lot about the quality of their mind, and good stuff.
Thanks.
Great questions. Thank you so much.
Great to talk to you, brother.